This is The Huddle, presented by the Midwest Christian Boys Football Camp, otherwise known as Man Camp. Welcome to The Huddle. Hey friend, welcome back to The Huddle. I'm Mike McCurry, your host. I'm with my dad, Chris McCurry, also 10 years as a coach coming up this year at the Midwest Christian Boys Football Camp. He sent me, my brothers Caleb and Ethan, to football camp. We got to play, then work on the admin side, and now coaching ourselves. And so it's kind of become a family affair. It's a lot of fun. But you gave us a life, the McCurry boys, that you did not necessarily get yourself towards the beginning part of your life. You mentioned yesterday that God has us in a particular position. The position we're in, the place we're in, doesn't surprise him. But there are young men, and there are parents out there listening right now that have come from or are dealing with broken homes. And speak to us for just a moment from your personal experience, a little bit of background information, how God can and wants to use people no matter what backgrounds they're from.
Well, I was the oldest of three children. And then when I was probably about 6 years old or so, my mom and my biological father, and I say it that way for a reason, got divorced. And then my mom, your grandmother, ended up meeting Mike McCurry, and they first shacked up, and I'm not condoning that, but that's what it was at the time. Then they ended up getting married, and then just through the mess of child support and visitation and things like that, my dad, who I consider my dad, Mike McCurry, came home one day and said, "Linda," he says, "I want to adopt the kids." And that was an exciting day for us, because I wasn't born with the McCurry name. But for one thing I learned is that children don't get to pick their parents. And that was a life lesson that helped me both just day to day. It helped me in the military. It helps me in the ministry, to realize that the children are really the victim by the choices that their parents make. But I was so fortunate that Mike McCurry wanted not just to marry my mom, but also basically take on the responsibility for three children. And because of his character and his work ethic, he passed that on to me, and I would hate to see where I would have turned out. Obviously, I wasn't raised in a Christian home, but we were still taught good work ethics and responsibility, and from that helped me pursue a career in the military, and through that, I come to know Jesus Christ as my Savior, because our first assignment in Korea is where I got saved, in the Yongsan Baptist Church in Seoul, South Korea. But, you know, unfortunately, children right now, and I see it every day in our bus ministry at our church, broken homes are so prevalent in our society. But at the same time, God, like you said, God knows where you're at, and God's not done with you. And so maybe it's just more responsibility to have a closer walk with God. Realize maybe our parents sometimes fail us, but God never fails us.
Right. Well, think that you would say, Mike and Linda McCurry, well, they were not perfect. Right. No parents are.
No.
There's not a single one, but we have God the Father.
Right.
And so we can always rely on him no matter what we're going through. And there may be church kids listening right now, growing up in church, and their parents fight like cats and dogs. And we're talking bluntly here. You pull in on Sunday morning, scream at each other, you get out, "Oh, it's so great to be here at church."
We never did that at our house.
But in all seriousness, can I tell you, God has enough grace for you in your situation. Can I tell you that you using anyone else as an excuse for you not following God is a bummer on your end. It's not someone else's fault. The devil didn't make me do it. My boo-hoo situation. And I'm not downing. I'm not saying these are light or trite things. Right. But you got to sit. It's amazing how it kind of parallels salvation to some degree. You got to sit as 8 or 9 or 10-year-old young man in the courtroom, and to know that this man says, "I don't want you," but then Mike McCurry said, "Yes, I will take him."
Right.
And to know that we can accept that salvation that God gives us as well. What a joy that is. I want to thank you for listening to the Bible. I want to thank you for listening to The Huddle today. Let me encourage you to join us all this week on this program. We've got one more broadcast tomorrow. God bless. Thank you for listening to The Huddle. You can find more information and register for Man Camp online at mancamp1994.org. Man Camp is a ministry of the First Baptist Church in Dwight, Illinois. Join us next time in The Huddle.